Madrigal electromotive caused Walt's cancer. Walt's cancer wasn't random. The evidence suggests the corporate machine that eventually distributed his blue meth is the same one that poisoned him first. Skyler states in Season 1, Episode 4 that Walt spent 20 years in a lab and constantly complained about inadequate ventilation hoods. Madrigal Electromotive GmbH, the German conglomerate secretly funding Gus Fring's empire, manufactures industrial equipment, including commercial air filtration system. Gray Matter Technologies, the company Walt co-founded with Elliot Schwartz, purchased that industrial equipment while Walt was still working there. The theory argues those Madrigal-supplied filters were defective. Walt spent years breathing carcinogens under faulty ventilation. Think about that. Either the machine that profits from Heisenberg is the same machine that signed his death warrant before he ever cooked a single gram. Walt didn't stumble into Madrigal's world. Madrigal's world had already claimed him. His cancer wasn't a starting gun. It was the bill coming due. Walt's cancer started the clock, but the wound that actually broke him open started 2 decades before the diagnosis, and it was never about money. Walter's gray matter betrayal was his true motivation. Walt told everyone he cooked meth to provide for his family. Vince Gilligan confirmed that was never the real reason. Walt co-founded Gray Matter Technologies at Caltech with Elliot Schwartz. He was engaged to his lab assistant, Gretchen. During a 4th of July weekend with her wealthy family, Walt felt overwhelmed by their privilege and status. He left without a single word of explanation. He sold his entire share of a future billion-dollar company for $5,000. Let that land. His share would later be valued at an estimated $720 million. He traded that for pocket change because his pride couldn't survive the room. Gilligan confirmed it publicly. Walt left because he felt inferior. Elliot and Gretchen stole nothing. Walt walked away. Psychologically, this represents the true engine of the entire series. Not cancer, not family. A 20-year wound to his ego that never healed. The meth empire wasn't survival. It was revenge. Walt's pride was the original fracture. Now, let's look at the man who understood that pride better than anyone and used it to keep Walt controlled. And pay attention here because what you're about to hear about his background quietly sets up something impossible later in the video. Gus Fring's CIA/Pinochet connection. Hank ran a full DEA background check on Gustavo Fring. Found nothing. 0 records in Chile before 1986. No birth certificate. No school records. No property. No military service. Gone. Completely erased. Understand what that means? Wiping a life that completely requires government-level resources. Not money. Government. In S3E8, Don Eladio spares Gus while executing his partner Max. His exact words, "I know who you are." Not what. Who. That's political protection. The CIA backed Pinochet's dictatorship throughout the 1970s and 80s. The theory? Gus was a Pinochet-era operative, later relocated to infiltrate the Juarez cartel as a long-term intelligence asset. Not confirmed, but the pattern of total institutional erasure is undeniable. His patience, his structure, his untouchability. These aren't businessman traits. These are the traits of a man trained by a government that hasn't officially acknowledged him in decades. Remember that detail. It matters later. Gus was protected by something we can't fully see. Walt was driven by something he'd never fully admit. But here's where it gets darker. What if the cancer that pushed Walt into all of this wasn't just bad luck? Walt's cancer diagnosis was fake. Walt is diagnosed with inoperable stage 3 lung cancer in S1E1. He never smoked. No family history mentioned. Now watch what happens when that cancer goes into remission. Season 2. Episode 10. Walt gets the news. You'd expect relief. Instead, he looks deflated, almost angry. He picks a fight with a complete stranger at a hardware store. He needs the cancer to exist. It's his permission slip. His justification for every crime, every lie, every murder. Without it, he isn't a dying man doing desperate things. He's just a man who chose to become a monster. Then in Season 5, Episode 9, watch how Walt uses it tactically. Telling Hank point blank that he'll be dead in 6 months, making any arrest pointless. Real or performed, Walt's cancer was never really about dying. It was about finally having permission to live the way he always wanted. The diagnosis didn't change Walter White. It freed him. Walt used the cancer as permission. Now watch who he quietly became, built from the people he destroyed one by one. Walter absorbs his victims' traits. Every person Walter kills leaves something behind. Their habits, their identity, pieces of who they were. You've seen this. Before killing Crazy 8 in Season 1, Episode 3, Walt notices he likes sandwiches without crusts. For the rest of the series, Walt cuts his own crusts off. Every single time. Mike Ehrmantraut drinks whiskey on the rocks. After Walt shoots Mike in Season 5, Episode 7, he starts ordering the exact same drink. Gus Fring drove a Volvo and operated with cold, calculated professionalism. After S4E13, Walt trades his Pontiac Aztek for the same make of car and adopts Gus's mannerisms. Quieter, more deliberate, more ruthless. Walter didn't just take lives, he collected souls like trophies. By season 5, the chemistry teacher is gone. What's left is a Frankenstein assembled from the men he murdered. Yeah, but the transformation wasn't just moral, it was literal. Walt absorbed his victims, but the show was warning you this was coming. Took 2 full seasons before it happened, hidden in a burned toy floating in a swimming pool. The pink teddy bear foreshadows Gus's death. Season 2 opens with those black and white flash forwards. A burned pink teddy bear floating in Walt's pool, its right eye missing. You probably assumed this was all about the Wayfarer 515 plane crash. That's what the show wanted you to think. The evidence points 2 full seasons further. In Season 4, Episode 13, after Hector's pipe bomb detonates, Gus Fring walks out of the room. Half his face is gone, his right eye socket exposed and empty. The visual match between that bear's missing eye and Gus's destroyed face is exact. The showrunners confirmed it directly. That bear, planted in Season 2, was already painting Gus's death while he was still the most feared operator in the Southwest. And pink isn't random. It's a death signal throughout the entire series. The bear, Saul's pink shirt in the flash forwards, Jane's possessions. The show was mapping deaths in advance, encoding them before the events occurred. The pink bear pointed 2 seasons into the future. Now there's a prop in Season 5 that maps Walt's entire endgame, and you've already walked right past it without noticing. The chessboard in Ozymandias predicts Walt's downfall. Season 5, Episode 14. Ozymandias, Walt abandons baby Holly at a fire station. In the background, a chessboard sits on a table. You'd never catch it in real time. Chess analysts did. The white pieces are in a losing position. No viable path to victory. The white king has exactly 2 pawns left, every other piece gone. Those 2 pawns, Badger and Skinny Pete, the only people Walt uses in the finale. But here's where the metaphor completes itself. In chess, knights move in unpredictable patterns. They deceive, they attack from angles nobody expects. In the finale, Walt uses Badger and Skinny Pete with laser pointers to simulate snipers, pawns performing the role of knights. The show turned the chess metaphor into literal staging. That chessboard wasn't background dressing. And it was the finale's complete battle plan, planted at the exact moment Walt lost everything that mattered. The chessboard told you who Walt had left. The show's color system told you who everyone was becoming, from the very first scene you ever watched. Color symbolism codes. Character fates. The Breaking Bad costume designer confirmed this system publicly. Every major character carries a deliberate color palette coding their moral state, maintained across all 5 seasons without a single exception. Walt starts in beige and tan. Safe, invisible, conformist. His wardrobe shifts toward black as he descends. Jesse wears red throughout. Danger, blood, the forbidden world he never fully chose. Skyler wears blue. Distance and moral ambiguity. Hank wears greens and earth tones. Law, stability, the natural order. Gus wears blue and gray. Total emotional suppression. Marie wears purple obsessively, then switches to black when her world collapses in Season 5. Pink signals death. The bear, Saul's pink shirt in flash forwards, Jane's possession. Now go back and rewatch any scene from Season 1. The wardrobe is already telling you everything that's about to happen to every character. Before a single word of dialogue, the colors showed you who everyone was becoming. The episode title spelled out exactly what was going to happen, months before it did. Episode titles foreshadow major events. Season 2. 4 episodes feature those Wayfarer 515 flash forwards. Their titles, 737, down, over. A BQ read them together. 737 down over. ABQ, the plane crash, written into the title sequence before the season ever aired. The writers confirmed this was completely intentional. Now, the finale. Felina works on 3 levels simultaneously. It's an anagram of finale. It references Marty Robbins' El Paso, a cowboy who rides back to die for the woman he loves, mirroring Walt's exact arc. And Fe, Li, Na, chemical symbols for iron, lithium, sodium, translate to blood, meth, and tears. The show's entire thesis, encoded in 3 letters, hidden in the title. Gilligan never publicly confirmed the chemical reading, but the pattern is undeniable. They weren't just naming episodes, they were building a hidden system underneath the show, encoding its meaning into the architecture itself. The titles mapped the tragedy. Now let's go inside the episode that mapped Walt's psychological collapse, using nothing but a single insect. The fly episode symbolizes Walt's guilt. Season 3, Episode 10. Walt becomes obsessed with a single fly in the superlab. You probably dismissed this as a bottle episode, a budget-saving filler. The evidence identifies it as something else entirely. The fly is Walt's guilt over Jane Margolis, given physical form. While sedated, Walt comes within seconds of confessing to Jesse that he watched Jane die and chose not to save her. He calls the night Jane died the perfect moment for him to have died too. Jesse eventually kills the fly. Walt watches. He cannot do it himself. He cannot face the guilt directly. A fly reappears immediately after Walt murders Mike in Season 5. Walt's final words before passing out: "It's all contaminated." He meant the batch. He meant his life. He meant everything. That fly was never about the lab. It was a guilt that Walt could circle endlessly, but never actually kill. If noticing that fly just changed how you see Walt, wait until you see what Jesse's arc actually means. Hit subscribe so you never miss a breakdown like this. Walt's guilt lived in the lab with him. Now let's see whether the most controlled man on the show used that guilt as a calculated murder weapon. Gus ordered Tomás'S murder to eliminate Jesse. Season 3. Gus's network uses 11-year-old Tomás Cantallo to commit murder. Jesse confronts the dealers. When Tomás is later killed, Jesse arms himself and walks toward them prepared to die. Gus steps in, calls his men off. You read that as Gus protecting a valuable asset. The theory argues you read it exactly the way Gus intended. Gus needed Jesse eliminated. He had Gail Bodeker, trained, controllable, already waiting as a replacement. Removing Jesse directly would trigger an immediate crisis with Walt. So, the theory holds Gus permitted Tomás'S murder. Knowing Jesse's emotional volatility would force a confrontation, giving Gus clean justification to have Jesse killed through provoked retaliation, not cold execution. Walt's intervention at gunpoint destroyed the plan. Gus immediately orders Gail to memorize Walt's complete formula, preparing to eliminate both of them. He didn't step in to protect Jesse. He engineered the situation to remove him. You've seen Walter White's full transformation into Heisenberg. The origins, the psychology, the hidden symbolism the show buried in every frame of his descent. Now comes the part that changes everything you thought you saw. Because what if the ending you watched wasn't real? The Felina hallucination. Walt died in the car. The theory, supported by Norm Macdonald and New York Magazine critic Emily Nussbaum, argues Walt froze to death in that stolen Volvo in New Hampshire. Everything in Felina is a dying hallucination. Look at the evidence. Keys fall from the sun visor as if placed by fate. Walt enters Skylar's monitored home completely undetected. He poisons Lydia without a single complication. His improvised trunk-mounted machine gun executes flawlessly. He saves Jesse. He dies peacefully, surrounded by chemistry. This is a show where Hank dies in a ditch, where Jane chokes alone, where Mike bleeds out on a riverbank, and the finale is surgically perfect. The song playing when Walt finds those keys is El Paso by Marty Robbins, about a man who rides back knowing he will die. A dead man's song. Walt died alone, frozen, in a stolen car. The man who needed to believe he won got to believe that. One final time. Whether Walt died in that car or in the lab, the episode's title told you the whole story before a single frame played. Ozymandias parallels Shelley's poem. S5E14 is titled Ozymandias, Percy Bysshe Shelley's 1818 poem about a crumbling statue of Rameses II. The inscription reads, "Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." Around it, nothing but empty desert. The parallel is structural. Walt built his empire in the New Mexico desert, convinced it would outlast him. In a single episode, it collapses entirely. Hank executed. Money stolen, family destroyed, name made toxic. The episode ends with Walt rolling one barrel of cash across open desert. The last fragment of an empire that once moved tens of millions of dollars. Shelley's poem is about a man who confused his power with permanence. Bryan Cranston read that poem aloud in the official Season 5 promotional trailer.
I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Too vast and..."
The only time a literary work was used to market the show directly. The writers didn't reference the poem. They built the season's entire arc around its thesis. Pride annihilates everything it creates. Walt's empire crumbled exactly like that statue. And what those two AMC shows share might mean Walt's empire didn't just fall, it ended the world. Breaking Bad is the Walking Dead prequel. The crossover evidence spans both shows deliberately. In TWD Season 2, Merle Dixon's drug stash contains Heisenberg's blue crystal meth, visually identical to Walt's product. Daryl describes Merle's dealer as a janky little white guy who said, "I'm gonna kill you, bitch," matching Jesse Pinkman's exact phrasing. Glenn steals a red Dodge Challenger with black racing stripes in TWD. The exact car Walt buys for Flynn in S4E5, returned to a dealership manager named Glenn. In Fear the Walking Dead, the narco corrido Negro Y Azul, Breaking Bad's Heisenberg song that plays at a market. The governor uses a coffee apparatus identical to the one Gail Bodeker invented and documented in his personal lab notes. Both shows aired on AMC. Both share producers. 5 separate planted details. None too deliberate to be coincidental. A shared universe was deliberately constructed across both shows. Walt's meth may have seeded The Walking Dead's apocalypse, but there's one character who may have crossed into that universe before the outbreak even began. Gus Fring was the first zombie. After the pipe bomb in Season 4, Episode 13, Gus Fring walks into that corridor, half his face gone, right eye socket exposed. He straightens his tie, then he falls. No living human walks out of that room. The extreme shared universe theory posits that Gus, exposed to Walt's 99.1% pure meth at industrial levels across years of operation, had already undergone a neurological mutation that delayed biological death. The connection to TWD-infected individuals continue functioning briefly after the fatal event, retaining behavioral memory while their systems shut down. That tie adjustment isn't composure. It's the last muscle memory reflex of a man whose body had already started a different process. There is no rational physical explanation within the show's established reality for what you see on screen in Season 4, Episode 13. Vince Gilligan never addressed it. But you've seen it. You know what you saw. Gus's end broke the laws of the show's own reality. Jesse's end repaired everything Walt destroyed, and it was the ending the show was building toward from the very first scene. Jesse's breaking good arc completes the circle. You've watched Walt's transformation, but here's what you may have missed. Jesse's arc runs in the exact opposite direction, and it's the one the show is actually about. Walt begins as a man society considers good. He ends a monster. Jesse begins as someone written off by everyone, including himself. He ends as the only character who earns survival through genuine moral growth. Jesse cannot kill Gale without it breaking him. He tries to leave the drug world repeatedly at enormous cost to himself. In El Camino, he rebuilds from nothing. New identity, relocates to Alaska, starts over. Vince Gilligan confirmed Jesse was originally written to die in the pilot outline. His survival was a deliberate choice, sparing the one person who kept trying to break the cycle. Now the show's title belongs to Walter White. Its moral conclusion belongs to Jesse Pinkman. Walt broke bad. Jesse broke good. 16 theories, and every single one of them was already sitting inside episodes you thought you understood. Walt didn't become Heisenberg because of the cancer. He became Heisenberg because of who he always was, and the cancer just removed the last reason to pretend otherwise. If that just changed how you see the whole show, click the video on screen right now.